Hi, my name is Tsitsi Mutendi, and you are listening to Enterprising Families podcast. Welcome to the world of enterprising families, where we discuss the issues of governance, next gen, and looking at how families of wealth and family businesses growing into families of wealth can preserve their wealth, become better as they go forward into a new generation. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Enterprising Families. And we are here and we're speaking with Guillermo Salazar. I hope I got that right.
You did.
Next thing I'm going to ask you is, what does that beautiful name mean? But I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself so that we can get into the interesting topic of speaking about families, telling their stories, and how it ties into family governance. Welcome, Guillermo.
Thank you, Tsitsi. Thank you very much. Well, my name is the Spanish version of the name in English, William. So the meaning is the one who holds the helmet. It's a Anglo origin name and supposed to be a warrior name. So we have a very interesting name for telling stories.
Wow, most definitely. And can you tell us a bit more about what you do, and especially focusing on why you feel that stories are really important to family businesses and telling their history as well as going into creating their future?
Yeah. Well, I'm a family business advisor. I've been working as consultant and advising families for 20 years. And what I think is that most of the importance of histories in family business is that they really help us to develop the future. It's a very interesting connection on how you deploy all of the information with the family of the origins and the history of the past that they have and they share, and how this material helps you and really guide you on building the future of this family business. So that's why I think it's very important to know the history that binds together all of the elements that create what we call the mythology of the family business.
So, in telling these stories, like you said, and creating the mythology of family businesses, how important do you think is getting the facts correct, as much as in adding in a bit of the fantasy? Because obviously, when you have stories, you have people who recollect things differently and who see the story differently. How best do you think a family can really bring together a story of their family in a way that is going to be impactful for all family members?
Mhm. Well, first of all, we have to know that every family has myths and rituals. This is a part of the healthy of the family. You cannot conceive a family without a mythology that creates the base of the communication of the family. So when we focus on family businesses, especially those families that has at least a third generation, that we could say that the third generation has a real conscious. Uh, they should be 14, 15 years old or older. Then you can create the perfect situation to recreate the mythology, because the mythology is always present, always there. So what we do is that we recreate, recount, retell the story of the family in front of them. We try to recreate the gathering of the basic gathering of telling stories since the beginning of the human history, all together talking around the fire, telling the stories, telling the myth of the culture and the base of the communication of the family. It's always the way that we've been doing it as human beings. And this is very important. And I think that one of the real uh, things that Africa has give us is that it was there 70,000 years ago, where mythology appeared. It was where the Homo sapiens start to imagine things, and then, and only then, he could conquer the whole planet, because thinking of things that doesn't exist help them to create the base of confidence with other people that believe in the same thing. They believe in a God, they believe in a community, they believe in money. There's always something to believe in, things that doesn't exist, and create the base of communication, community, and confidence, and of course, trust in one and the other. So yes, this is very important. Having the conscious of the mythology that we share, it's the base of how confident do you feel with the rest of the family.
And can you tell, or maybe can you share with us, what are some of the most interesting and impactful stories that you've seen when that have passed on from generation to generation and actually created an impactful change or an impactful bringing together of a family?
Yeah, well, most of the histories are related always with the myth of the founder of the family business. And here is the interesting part. The way that we create our histories, have uh, the way that we have the construct of telling histories in our minds, it's always related with a pattern. And it was in 1949 here in the USA that an anthropologist called Joseph Campbell published a book of what he called the monomyth. You know, based on the investigation and the research that he was doing for almost 20 years in different cultures around the world, he found that there is always the same history that humankind is telling once and again and again and again. And it's the myth that recreates the figure of the hero. And he called this myth the hero's journey, the way that someone who lives in an ordinary world goes through a magical world and comes back with bringing justice to his people. So every time that we listen to the story, and you can name a lot of heroes, you can include religious heroes like Buddha or Christ or uh, everything related with religion is always related with this pattern, or everything related with history. Once you have not only the person, once you have the myth of the person, which are things that are different, you will have always repeating the same pattern of someone who brings justice to the people that they love, because they could make a special journey, and he came back with that. So every time that we recreate a history in a family business, most of the times that we are doing is repeating the same pattern of the hero's journey.
And how early do you think it's important for family members to start hearing about the family history and the family story and the heritage of the family?
Hmm. Well, I think that it depends on what the family is looking for. If you want to really create a base of values, if you want to set the base that, for example, define their own the values of the family, or maybe a family protocol, or maybe a family governance, and you want to discover where do your values comes from, my suggestion is to recreate the story of the family, because every time that you tell the story, you will find moments and milestones where the protagonists have to make a decision that changes the course of the journey, and those decisions are always based on values. So those are the values that are transferred from one generation to the other, because those values were the one that make the journey going in one way or the other. So yes, every time that you would like to create or build something for your family business, my recommendation is start telling the story, because you will find the authenticity of those values that will support what you're going to build.
Being a family governance practitioner myself, I find that telling stories is very impactful when you are building on to the family's governance, like you said. It reminds the family of the values. It reminds the family, and it even helps the family create the vision for the future by simply looking at the past and what has been succeeded, and seeing how best they can take the family forward. In your opinion, besides just telling the story, do you think that capturing the story in books and maybe even creating film work, a short film, something that can relate to different family members, can be something that can really help bring that myth or that family story, family history alive?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that this is the best idea. If you want to really pass um, on the next generation those values and the principles that support your family, you will have the perfect guide if you create a film script based on the hero's journey, and you have it. It's very easy to do because the formula is there. It it should go around 12 phases where the hero starts his journey, and every time that he goes and has a new phase, you can recreate that the same pattern with this history of the family. Once you have that, once you have there will be something that will happen, is that the one who's reading that book that belongs to that family, or the one who's watching that movie that belongs to that family, will start to make conscious the unconscious that is lying in the unconscious of the family myth, because all of the myths live with the archetypes that create that story. So every time that you have the opportunity to listen to that story, you will understand that those archetypes are telling you something in your unconscious. And once you discover that, you will understand who you really are in that plot that you are having in front of you. So yes, that is an excellent tool for helping family members to know where do they belong in the history of the family.
And what happens when the family isn't quite sure about some elements of their family story, or some elements of their family history? What would you advise that the family do just to unearth that history and get that missing element in there? Because it could be something that the family feels is very critical to their history, and is a missing piece of the puzzle, I would say. Mhm.
Yes, well, that's very interesting, because when we say storytelling, there is another part of the methodology, which is story listening. And listening really requires compassion when you are working with families. Um, if you are a listener of a story, you will know how to do the right questions, because there are always missing pieces, as you say. There is no the whole story. It never comes the whole story. You have to dig and you have to ask, but you have to have the touch to ask, and there's where the compassion comes, because probably there are things that people don't want to say. Probably there are things that make them shame, or they only want to forget a bad moment. And when that listener start to dig and found things that probably you better don't ask. But let me go a little bit further and tell me things around that idea. I can start to understand most of the feeling that you are sharing with me. So yes, there are family secrets, for example, in one place, but there are things that if we start to work together in trying to get the information in a proper way, those pieces will arise somehow or other. And this is very important because if you have questions and you don't have the answers, then that secret will arise somehow in some moment, but it will appear. It will appear because I already make the question, and that answer will come somehow.
And how important or how can the current and the next generation start creating and placing their pieces into the family story, into the family myth?
Okay, yeah. Every myth, every mythology that is shared in a family is part of the collective unconscious of the family. So there's always a protagonist of the story, one or two or three protagonists, but there are always other archetypes that runs together with the history of the journey of the hero that can be part of the story, or even it can be one of the persons that jumps into the story and understand that his role is to do this particular archetype in the story. And you will have the hero, which is the protagonist, but you will have the magician, you will have the master or teacher, you will have, in some cases, you will have a traitor, or you will have the bad guys of the story and the good guys, and basically in the family, whoever is going with the hero is an ally, and the hero needs allies because the hero cannot do it by himself. There is no one hero that is absolutely perfect and infallible. Uh, you will need always allies that will help you to defeat the bad guys. So when you understand what's your role, you become an ally and you make the figure of the myth stronger and with more sense for everybody in the story.
Interesting. And how do family members actually know what part of the story they're playing? And is every actor or every character in the story equally important? Or is it important to understand each and every character's part in the story to be able to identify values that the family aligns with and identify culture that they want to cultivate within the family?
Yes, yes. I mean, when you recreate the story with the family, you will see that if the hero still's alive, uh, you will see that there is a part of the journey that need to be completed. And in those cases, the next generation becomes um, as the supporters of the return of the hero. So in those cases, especially, you will see that the hero needs to do one last, um, um, how do you say, challenge. You will have the last challenge, which is bringing justice to the people that he loved. So those people that he loved, they have the responsibility to receive this justice. And then is when you discover what really is your role, and you understand, okay, I am important because I have the responsibility. I am the heir of this hero, and this responsibility that we are receiving now is part of the continuation of the journey. And then I also can become a hero because I will start my own journey and I will need my own allies, and I will face the bad guys too, but as part of a continuum of the responsibility that originally came from the previous generation. So that's a way that every time that you tell the story, you see things that need to be done, and responsible for that work, and who will be the next in line to keep on going with the journey of the hero. Okay.
And do you feel that there is limit as to what a family, like in terms of there's certain families that should have myths, or is it something that's opening the story essential to all families, regardless of what stage they're at and where they are in the story of their journey?
Hmm. Well, I see that it works better with family business in second or third generation, where the founder is the parent or the grandparent of the next generation, because the way that the myth is created, it's all around the person that made possible the family business. So if you go further in more generations, there will be more protagonists that will help to make bigger and greater the family business. And the journey will be shared in different heroes. But when you have second to third generation, you will see that everything is related with the founder, everything is related with his values and the journey that he started. And then the plot comes in a perfect way to fit all the requirements of the patterns that we have. So those special second, third generation, or even just in second generation, you will see that really works very, very well.
Interesting. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Enterprising Families. And I just want to ask you if there's any parting advice you would give to families that are considering looking at creating stories and memories within stories that can help them solidify their family journey and their family vision, as well as their family values.
Yes, and my best advice is do it. Try to recreate the history of the family. Try to be very honest on the histories that you tell, because when you are honest, you will see where the values that support your business comes from, and the authenticity of these values is the power that you will need to go to the future that you are looking for. So yes, go ahead and tell the story.
Perfect. Thank you so much once again. And anyone who wants to get hold of our guest today can get hold of him through his social media. You're on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yes. And I will put the links at the bottom of this recording so that you can get hold of him and find out more about how you can authentically tell your family's stories.